Hello and welcome to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach. It's always a joy, always a privilege to be able to be with you, and not just alone and solo, but also with some type of phenomenal guest who is an expert in some form or fashion or thought leader, as we call them these days. Those of you who are new to the platform, we are the destination for mentoring moments. And those mentoring moments have a global influence, giving you a chance to kind of get inside the heads, the hearts, the minds of individuals who have experienced some level of success, but they're also leaning into significance. And that is a difference. And you'll hear that in our testimonials and our opportunities of exposure and conversation with our guests. Why? Because it's one thing to go after something and grab a hold of it, and then you succeed at it, and that's success as you define it. But then it's another when you get to the point and you're not just chasing a thing, but you're also providing an opportunity for others to experience or benefit from that thing. And that's what we try to focus on, to make sure that we're not just self-centered in the whole act of this process of making it. But many of us have made it, and we're just needing to also be just nudged a little bit to see we ought to be quite grateful for where we are at the moment. And then we have to do it in fashion. And I say that because our guest today is absolutely amazing when it comes to that. And those who know me, you know, I like to pop my collar and look a little fly every now and then. And so my guest is totally next level when it comes to this whole idea of fashion. But did you know that fashion actually has an impact on your mood, on how you deliver, on how you're perceived, on how it is that you even feel? So we're going to dive a little deep in that. And our guest today is Miss Laura Sawyier. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Beyond excited. You know, we've had a number of occasions. This is my lunch buddy, and we head on over to, yes, luxury stores to have lunch and talk about fashion, but also ways to collaborate, or just to really, I love the fact that we get a chance to come together and just brainstorm, right?
Absolutely. So it's a pleasure to be here with you right now, talking about fashion and psychology and feeling good. And I would love actually to, at some point, share a little bit about my journey with mentorship as well, because it's so important, and it takes a village to help, an individual really lift themselves up. So I'm just thrilled to talk to you more, just an extension of our conversations that we have on a regular basis. So thank you.
Wonderful. Those who are not familiar, Laura K. Sawyier is a fashion consultant, personal stylist, and branding expert who works with Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, and individuals that are using evidence-based research with the applied psychology of fashion. Yes, this is a real thing. I'm a style expert for various media outlets. Her work has been featured in MSNBC, Fast Company, Travel and Leisure, Elle India, the Zoe Report, amongst many others. She is here in St. Louis, part of her time. I know she goes back and forth also to New York, but then also global. So she gives us this perspective in regards to fashion and how it shows up. But I love the fact that she can blend these things and cause us to kind of experience something anew. Why is fashion? Why are we so obsessed with fashion, Laura?
Well, for one, it's a novelty. Just in terms of the human condition, we're obsessed with the constant nature of newness and colors and shapes and fabrics and feeling things on our bodies and expressing ourselves. It's, one of the largest industries in the world. I think it's like ranked number 6, I want to say. Or it employs 1 in 6 people, I should say, globally. And that's from every aspect of the supply chain. So that's from people, growing cotton to, pattern makers and putting clothing together, and designers and tailors and people like me That includes, the editorial side of it and the media side of it as well. I mean, there's just so many facets. We could have a whole conversation about that. But fashion on the individual level really is about personal expression beyond the baseline layer of the fact that we need to put clothing on our bodies. We live in a country where we're required to get dressed legally. And in all seriousness, there obviously are cultures around the world and also certain like cultural groups that have, different lenses on clothing. So I am going to be talking about clothing in the context of how we experience it here in, the United States, and then some other global places throughout the world as well. So I just want to make sure we've got that distinction noted here.
Wonderful. There is quite a big difference when it comes to fashion, in my experience, as I've been able and fortunate enough to travel the world. And even now, we're finding that fashion shows up a little different, considering we have had this pandemic that we've experienced, and that's globally, worldwide. And now we've come to this point to where there was just this boom in loungewear, and I think we've gotten a little used to it. Mm-hmm. I know pre-arrival to our recording and our time together, we talked about the fact that many of us have now a whole new section in our closets or drawers, and that is loungewear. But now that loungewear for some of us has become a major staple, while there are others of us who are wearing blinged out shirts, just to watch Netflix. Because what are your thoughts regarding this shift in how the pandemic has impacted how we show up and or lack thereof of showing up?
Sure. We had this tremendous shared trauma, obviously, the last few years. And from a clothing and a dressing perspective, it is one of those sort of silver linings, if you will, that have come out of the pandemic in terms of just understanding oneself and self-reflection. And it's something I've been talking about that was even before the pandemic, which is clothing and what you put on your body really matters and it impacts you. And we as humans often don't affect any sort of change in our lives until we feel the pain points of it. And we then therefore need to do something about it. And so that was one of those moments, in March 2020, where everybody was like, wait a second, I'm at home. This is intense. There are, varying degrees of trauma and stress and pulls and demand, particularly with caretakers and people working, from home now who have to take care of family members and children. And then also the distinction where work and home were very blurred. And so, of course, it was almost immediate that people would reach for elastic anything. I wrote a piece early on, I think it was in March, maybe April of 2020, imploring people to get out of their pajamas for the day and to change, because our brains register the shift in the clothing that we're wearing because it creates delineation throughout our days. So it is so critical that we actually change our clothes from a neurological perspective, but also then too from a sanitary perspective. We'll talk about clothes as we go on in the conversation, but grooming is, a big part of this as well. So there are just so many layers that I think felt that they could sort of cocoon themselves into in the early days. And it did something with people. And there are so many conversations about it now in terms of people putting on their sweatpants. I mean, look, I get this question a lot. People are like, are you always so dressed up every day? And I'm not, admittedly, I like to get comfortable too. There are days where I am working from my home office and I will put on yoga pants and a really cute sweater. Like, truth be told, I can't deny it. Do I do that often? Not necessarily, because I don't want to get all slouchy. However, those days, it could be cold outside, it could be a snowy day. And I know for a fact that I am just, cranking out emails and client support work and doing shopping for them that I can do at my desk. And so I like to be mindful of encouraging people who like lean into the comfort, do it. However, know when to do it is really important, because in part of my work that I do as a consultant, I also work with organizations and nonprofits on anything from, encouraging changes to dress codes to executive presence and confidence. And so a big part of that through my lens is style, not just in clothing, but just every aspect of style, how you like move your body, how you communicate, how you engage with others, and how you, take care of yourself. And so that is a really critical component to helping people understand you need to create delineation throughout your day and understand what your lifestyle is as well. Because sure, right? I mean, it's easy to throw on a pair of sweatpants. They're comfortable. Yeah. But just think about it next time, how you feel and what your day looks like when you go to do it. Is it actually serving you? Maybe just write down. I would actually encourage, people watching to maybe, the next time you go to think to put on sweatpants, just grab a little pen and paper or grab a note section on your phone, and throughout the day, if you remember, or put an alarm on and just pause and write down, how do you feel in this moment right now? Is this serving you or is it not serving you?
Yeah, I know you bring up something that I get mocked about often by my close girlfriends, sister friends, and my guy friends. And they're like, so you have on like a skirt and a blouse and you're just in the house? And or like, really, you have on a whole dress? And I do, because it does make me feel better, but it also it's not like I have on all the bells and whistles of the day. But I will tell you, for me, it's a difference. It makes a difference. And I also realize that if I'm working at home or I'm doing a remote day, and as you mentioned, emails, nothing is really pressing where I have to be present in the face of others, it still impacts my delivery in the day, or my sense of urgency, or my lack of motivation, if I can say that. It does impact that, I will say.
Right. So I feel the same way personally as well. When, as I described, a certain day where I'm working from home and I have a pair of yoga pants on and a nice sweater, if I have a call like this that we're doing right now, or I have a client call, you better believe I am dressed. Yes. And for me, do
you cheat though? Is it waist up? Do you cheat?
I've done that before, and I have certain clients. So like, I'm very honed in on reading the room, whether it's in person or virtual, which is a really big part of getting dressed and presenting yourself. Because there are some clients who have said to express to me, I just like really want to be comfortable. We're doing a Zoom closet session right now. It'll make me feel better if you're comfortable too. And people have said that to me. And so that's one way to read the room. And I say, okay, and like we break the ice that way. And again, mind you, I'm dressed from the top up, but I am very conscientious of the rooms that I'm in and the way in which I'm dressing as well. Now, it's probably a bit easier for me to say that just given the fact that I am a style expert. And so when people have asked me in the past, how would you describe your style? I most often just say I'm a chameleon in my own way, because it allows me the opportunity to wear so many things that I love, that are fun, and I love to experiment, and I love to express. And some days I love to wear all black, and other days I love to be in all sorts of bright colors and prints mixed together. So it really just depends on honestly reading the room. Yeah. I will add that when I am showing up for clients in their closets for the first time, so this is a new client that I'm working with on the personal styling end of my business, I generally wear all black for a reason.
Why?
Yes. So When I'm working with a new client, we have various levels of onboarding. We have Zoom calls to kick things off. They have a questionnaire they fill out, and then we get to the point where we meet in person. Typically, most of my clients are in person. I do have a larger cohort now that are virtually tapping in as well. Even people that I travel to go see. It's just, another silver lining that came out of the pandemic that's allowed us to connect, obviously, in all sorts of different places. But I do that for the reason that it is a universal neutral color. Okay. And I am walking into someone's space I have not seen or been in before. So I'm there to experience and absorb it for the first time. And they are there in their most sacred space, ready to absorb someone who they have not had in their space ever before, who is about to come in and compassionately and constructively give them feedback, and very honestly. So there are lots of no's involved, and maybe less this, more of this. So we have, some really honest conversations. We have a lot of fun too. I can't miss that. But it's because of that, I make just a very clear choice that when I go in, my clothing should not be the standout in the dialogue that I'm having within their personal environment. It's really the best that I can do to focus on, let my clothing and what I'm enclothed in really step back and let my focus on them and expertise and guidance for them and compassion, and just being open to listening to them, mostly let that be the sole focus, not what I'm wearing in this moment. So that's another read the room example. I will say lastly on this point that when I do start working with clients, and I have very long-term relationships with clients that I work with, so we start working together often, and then I'm a part of their team as we move through months and years, which is really wonderful. But once that starts to happen, then I shift into more, don't get me wrong, all black is totally my style. I'm originally from New York, so I love it. But I will say moving to the Midwest has brought a lot of color into my vocabulary for me personally as well. And so then I get to know somebody, and then I start to sprinkle in more of, what it is that I want to share with them through the lens in which I dress, which is inspiring then to them. Yeah. And it gives permission often to say, well, if she's doing it, I sure can do it.
Right.
And sometimes the best kind of nudge and permission is done non-verbally.
Oftentimes, which is my Nick notes. I give everyone a word, or let a word center our conversation. And I have that word, but I want to also go back real quick to the point you made in regards to reading the room. And for me, oftentimes it is anticipating what will happen in the room. Being invited to speak, being invited to serve on a panel, being invited to facilitate a class or workshop. I love fashion. I absolutely love fashion. And you would be so proud of my closet because it's all color coordinated. To have you over.
I love it.
So, but I mute myself, because you can still be very fashion forward and muted. Muted meaning I'll do all black. Navy is my jam right now. True or ink, that true blue, deep blue. And I will do something and sometimes it may be a deep mahogany or crimson, but there's nothing popping. There is just real smooth, chromatic formula, possibly, because it can be a distraction, not only for those who are trying to hear you, but also for you to deliver, because there is an energy that comes with all of that, especially when I know today I'm looking a little extra. We know when that's being real. We know that. And it comes across, and I'm not talking about the feel good part of it, but I'm talking about making sure, as you mentioned, when I come in to speak, I'm here to learn and share and grow with the group, and to be a part of the group, not to stand apart from the group. And so that to me even bleeds into my diversity, equity, and inclusion work, to where you want to make sure that you're including yourself in the group, but also that the people you're with feel included. And yes, from fashion, this it makes a difference. And so my word was presence. My word for us was presence. And when I say presence, there are some people who come and can show up in loungewear and still feel the space. Their very essence just feels the space, and they have that kind of presence. But also there's other times when we put on our uniform for the day, our attire for the day, our representation, and this presence shows up. And so the dictionary, it's a noun, and it's defined as to impress people by their appearance and manner. So going back to that psychology of fashion, it's all of it. And then two, something such as a spirit that's felt or believed to be present. So this anchors, how you started us off today.
I love it. Full circle. Perfect.
Yes,
and for the record, I didn't know that word was coming. So here we are.
No, you don't. You don't. But it is very, very, and that's why I was tickled at the very beginning, because I'm like, oh my gosh, she has my word.
Perfect.
But how did you even land in this space? Because you did not start off as rooted as you are in this space. Give us a little peek into that.
Sure. I think that, I'm an entrepreneur and have been for the last 5 years. And prior to that, I worked as an experiential designer and marketer. And so I was doing a lot of designing and production and putting together anything from, a big party to a gala to a wedding to a small dinner party. And at the time I was living in New York, and it was just high energy, highly creative, and getting a peek into some of the most extraordinary spaces throughout the world. And so prior to that, I also worked in retail, actually. And so that was really, my beginning interest in fashion. But I will say, I think it's worth noting, like, on this journey, now that I'm here and as I move forward, because I still have, moments that I stumble trying to figure it out, but I definitely feel I have a grounding below me that feels firm, but it's also just soft enough for me to continue to leap forward as well. And so, when I was in my 20s, I, like most people in their 20s, was really trying to figure it out. And at the time, I loved fashion. I've always loved fashion, but I had a narrative in my head that, I don't have the pedigree to work in the fashion industry. And I believed that, I kept telling myself that. So I did the closest thing I could, which was to go into events and experiential, and therefore was able to work on fashion-related experiences. And so fast forward, I've been in St. Louis for 8 years now, and I continued doing events, and I was just feeling burnt out. And to my husband's encouragement and that of a mentor of mine, I sat and I had breakfast with her, and she looked at me and was like, I can tell you're not happy. What do you want to be doing? Let's figure this out. Let's start working this out. And I said, well, I've always wanted to work in fashion, but I've had this old narrative in my head, and I think it's too late. And, I don't mind sharing my age at the
Too late because of what?
Because I was 29. Because this is, you feel like at the time, it feels scary. And I think that can be really relatable for a lot of people. And with the right kind of, coaching and advocates and champions, and those are the voices that I started hearing in my head. And then those were the voices that was my voice in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, in the beginning, you start at the beginning. And I started with her as a client. I started telling all of my friends, and, I was willing to jump into any opportunity. I also started early doing a lot of commercial styling as well. And that's working with brands on their lookbooks and any, advertising or social media campaigns as well. And so I started doing more of that. And very quickly, I really refocused some of my energy and learning at the time to the psychological aspect of fashion. I personally have experienced it and really was really beginning to listen to my inner voice, the positive one, and became curious about psychology and fashion and how we can better ourselves and how clothing must be doing something to help us, that we don't realize consciously, or, it's just so nuanced. So what's going on here? And so I, did some Googling, and I stumbled upon a psychologist, Dr. Carolyn Mayer. She is based in London, and she is an icon of mine. She, and I've connected with her, thankfully, and she created a program at the London College of Arts, which is the only, as far as I know, fully accredited bachelor and master's program in the applied psychology of fashion. And so I've just begun to learn so much, and I've been reading more. And from that, I really realized, that it directly correlates to presence and confidence and what we put on our bodies and how it matters so much. And that's the fast forward explanation.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Want to take a moment to just remind individuals that this is Conversations in the Nick of Time. I'm your host, Nikki Roach, and we are so excited to have with us Miss Laura Sawyier, fashion expert, fashion industry thought leader, and providing us some insight in regards to the impact of fashion and how it can really elevate our confidence, set the mood, and give us a different set of executive presence and gravitas and all those things. So I am in one of my most favorite places in the STL, and today we're speaking with Laura Sawyier. And what's so interesting is that this is the space, the place that we meet quite often, just to kind of chop it up and brainstorm. And we're talking about fashion, everything fashion. Laura has already told us that there's the business side of the fashion, but then there's also the psychology side. How many of you have really tripped off the fact that your clothes actually communicate a message to the world? When you think about that, then what is that message that you're communicating to the world? Very interesting. I thought so as well. But this being, again, one of my favorite topics, Laura, I'm coming from your job. No, just kidding. But now I want to know, what are some must-haves that we need to have in our closet, or is that just taboo? So let's check out and hear what it is that she has to say. So there are some articles that I was able to find. There's one by Forbes.com, and the article title, "What Your Clothes Say About You," by LearnVest, former contributor. And they talk about shopping and spending behaviors often come from internal motivations, such as emotions, experiences, and culture. You look at shopping and storing behaviors, even putting together outfits, and people think of it as fluff. But any behavior is rooted in something deeper. I look at the deeper meaning of choices just like I would in therapy. So here's another voice to add to the conversation in regards to the complexity of what we oftentimes think is just a simple thing, and something we get in the habit of just toss me something. As you mentioned, in this country, we need to cover up. So we cover up and we just kind of pick some things. Let's turn our attention to a couple things in regards to some speed, not speed dating, speed or rapid style.
Great.
Perks. Because those of us, a lot of times I will tell individuals who I'm having conversations with, if it's a mentoring space or a space just for insight, I'm a big advocate to dress for where I'm going. And I don't mean literally where I'm going for the day, but what's next for me in life. And so I've always been like, okay, it doesn't mean like wearing a certain thing, but it's just about what does it look like for where I'm going in life. There was a season where I had in higher ed reached a pretty decent level, a directorship level in my career. Very young at that time to be in that space. And when I did, one thing I did, and this is so true, I, with every check, would go to Lord and Taylor and buy me a suit. Every check for over a year. Because I mean, I had, so we're talking a significant amount of suits, and then I would break the suits up and wear, but then I realized it wasn't me. I felt too constrained in these suits. So that's why it caused me to break them up. So if it was an all navy, I would break that navy up and put the chocolate brown pants with it and put on some floral, but some people don't know you can break up a suit just because you bought it all together.
Oh, yes.
You can break it up. So that's how I started, like my little hack and my tip. But I realized, even though I was trying to dress for where I was going, because it's the same now, because I'm still in a 9 to 5, but I'm also very much that much of a percentage is, I don't consider it a 50-50. No, I'm 100%, with a corporation, but I'm 100% with myself in regards to my company. But I blend that because one is very creative and one is very black suit, white blouse, or white blouse and black skirt. No, I will throw on some funky hose to break all that up, right? So what's your go-to when you're working with a client? What's one of the first things that you have them to kind of explore?
Okay, first of all, real quick, retail therapy is a real thing. It's why it's called retail therapy. And like anything out there is a fine line to be walked.
Listen, and I cannot go with anyone such as yourself, because that's dangerous.
Oh yeah, I am very much the restraint person for a handful of clients, and they are happy that that is the case. So one of the first things that we focus on, I get that question a lot. It's really interesting. And I will keep it rapid fire. It's really hard to pinpoint just one specific thing because I work with so many different people who have so many different lifestyles. But I will say, oftentimes, especially coming out of the pandemic, we're really focusing on people's shoes. Absolutely. There's a large reevaluation and reconsideration of so many different things in people's closets, but shoes are a big topic right now. People are either just like over them, or they've really worn them down and they were like, it's the pandemic, whatever. And so there is a desire now coming out of it for a lot of people that I am exposed to and work with, to begin to take a level of elevation in the way in which they're showing up in their lives. And shoes is definitely a common thread. And it could be like a really cool sneaker to a dress shoe, to a boot, to a wedge or a heel. But lots of shoe conversations as well. And people are ordering a lot online too. So I'm able to provide a lot of advice with fitting and size, just because shoe sizing is incredibly challenging.
Okay. Name the top 3 things females should have in their closet, male, if you want to go there as well.
Sure. I think for both or just everybody, it's good underwear. Make sure that it fits. Make sure that, we are conditioned to look at sizing and look at that as a way to impose judgment and criticism and potentially shame back on ourselves. If we're putting a number on our body or a letter on our body that we feel is unfounded for the thing that it is. And so I encourage people, great underwear, and stop looking at the size. If it fits, that's the most important thing. You want it to be smooth. You don't want it, one, you don't want it falling down, and two, you don't want it to be too tight because they show up underneath everything else. Lines do.
Okay.
The second thing I would say is jeans, great jeans,
Okay.
and like nice jeans. No more ripped jeans. If you have ripped jeans, cool, keep them. There's a time and a place for them, but like really quality denim. Absolutely. Yeah. As a mainstay, I think,
No rips.
I mean, wear a ripped jean, believe me. I'm all for all types of jeans, but have a good pair of clean, medium to dark wash jeans available to you that, again, fit is the most important thing. I'm just going to keep coming back to fit. It's so critical. But yeah, I mean, there's so many shifts in the workplace in particular now, the traditional workplace now, or the corporate workplace, I should say, primarily. And a lot of places are opening up to denim, and there's a lot of uncertainty and vagueness surrounding that. And like your best bet is just to have like a well-fit dark wash denim that doesn't have a lot of aged, wear to it as well.
Yeah,
and then the third thing, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and you don't have to break the bank. That's one thing.
No,
found,
my gosh. You can go to like Old Navy, you can go to Madewell, like resale and vintage is tremendous these days. It's extraordinary. I mean, you can go to resale stores and vintage stores or go online and honestly find a pair of jeans that have the tag still on them.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I do a lot of shopping, vintage and resale. And so it's always like a fun little surprise when you find something you're like, oh, the tags are still on. No. Wow. I just bought a top actually on the Real recently with the tag still on it. And I was like, well, I paid, 80% off from what this was retail. So I'll take it.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'd say the third thing in terms of what everyone should have in their wardrobe. Oof. I will say really quick, what I would not say that everyone should have is like the classic button-up shirt or the classic blazer. They're just not for everyone. So I think that's how I would answer that actually. Okay. Because so much of my consulting is not about you need this, you need this, you need this across the board, which is a very normal historical question. But it's shifting more now to, for you, Nikki, you need this, 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 and this that will out your existing collection, which it makes it a lot more complicated for people because the capsule wardrobe still exists and has for a long time because, again, we want things that fit perfectly into a box that work really well and easy for us that we don't need to spend a lot of time on. Yeah. But when it comes to authentic dressing and dressing for yourself within the realm of your lifestyle, it does take a little more effort. So, I would offer the shift in perspective from this is stressful, this is so overwhelming to maybe I should take this as an opportunity to allow a little bit of curiosity into this space.
Yeah. Speaking of curiosity, what's a myth regarding fashion that you want to dispel?
That fashion is only for a small subset of people in this world. I think the industry, in some instances, still, it's getting a lot better. This goes back to my narrative, 15 years ago of, you don't have the pedigree to work in fashion. Mm-hmm. It's just really shifting, because fashion is an incredibly democratic thing. It's for everybody. And it allows, there's science, there's data now that speaks to it, allowing you to really fully express yourself and you actually feel good about it. You started this whole conversation off with clothing impacting your mood and your performance and your relationships. And that is a fact.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about fashion, you have a blog that and articles that you're writing and producing. In those articles, and also the videos that come along with the information as well, will walk us through different scenarios, such as things to do with a scarf, how to layer your necklaces, how to stack your rings. And it's not necessarily one trend that I'm loving. And have used myself is the silver and the gold jewelry together. At one point, I was just like, you need to pick one. And so rigid, but now there's no rules. Talk to us about this no rules, because I'm even wearing a formal, it's a t-shirt, but it's formal with jeans. You know, a jean is a suit, but it's denim. So it's like there are no rules. And now we're wearing sequin skirts with Converse.
Right, right. There are no rules anymore, which is for me personally and as a stylist the most exciting thing. For everyone else, it's probably incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
You know, but I will say what that means is that it allows more individual expression. There is a term, it's called enclothed cognition. And
Okay.
so I'll briefly explain this. So in 2012, two psychologists, Hajo Adams and Adam Galinsky, performed a series of tests that resulted in this terminology. And this is a very condensed version of it, but it's available to search online. The journal is published and available for free. And so what it means is that when we put an article of clothing on our bodies that we believe has a certain meaning associated with it. So in this experiment, they put people in doctors' lab coats in one group, and were told they were wearing doctors' lab coats. In another group, they were put in the same coat, but told they were painter's smocks. Each of these separate groups were given a series of just analytical tests to run and performance tests. And they ran this multiple times. And the group that was wearing the doctor's lab coats outperformed the group that was in the painter's smock coats on the specific type of tests that they were taking, which was a bit more scientific related versus a creative approach to examination. And so what this then resulted in is this terminology of enclothed cognition. And in very, very just like distilled terms, what it means is when we put something on our body, we could have an article of clothing or a piece of jewelry that is associated with a memory of the last time that we wore it. It could be from someone that gave it to us as well as a gift, or something that was handed over through a relative or a friend as well. And we correlate meaning around that. And what that does for us is it begins to develop new neurotransmitters in our brain. Wow. And so we respond regularly to the things that we're wearing. Some things could make us feel not so great as well, which is an important aspect of keeping this in mind. But what's so critical to understand in this world of no more rules is it's why curiosity is so important. And I encourage people, step outside your comfort zone a little bit, try something on. Like literally, how does it make you feel? It could also just be as simple as a color. It could also be a silhouette on your body. And we reach for things that are safe because, one, we're familiar, again, going back to the neurotransmitters, and because they are somehow approved by whomever it is that approves them. And so that's why trends are so prevalent in our culture as well, because it gives people this stamp of approval, like, yeah, this is good, you can wear this. I have to work in a way where I'm with clients to sort of help them reverse engineer that a little bit, and focus on no, skinny jeans are not out. You can wear skinny jeans if they look good on you. That's a big one,
Right.
Or like, there are many others.
And this is so interesting that you bring this up, because we have told ourselves, especially as leaders in our various industries, you want to stand out. You want to have this presence. You want to show up, and bring your whole self and all these things. But we do everything to kind of blend in and mute ourselves, right?
Right.
Same with fashion. Like, how do I just show up and just be right here in the space of not so much invisible, but just to blend in. And it's not always about blending in, but to stand out and from the crowd. And that's okay. But we fight it. We say we want it in one part, but we don't in the other. But it's because you can take 5 of us. So the 2 of us, and let's say 4 of us, we both bring a friend. We go have lunch. We all wear the same white button-down cotton blouse with a pair of jeans. It's going to look so different on each one of us because of what we put is not always what's on us, but it's what's in us also, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the power of clothing. And I think what you're describing in terms of this bring your whole self generally, and also the no rules parameters as well, really focuses in on confidence. That's a big part of it. And, to be clear, you can be confident in a navy suit, and a white blouse with a pair of heels on or a flat and walk into a room. You can still command that confidence.
Correct.
Clothing is a layer that you can leverage and build on. When you're in those types of rooms, just using that as an example, your example there, a big part of that comes down to, again, leaning into enclothed cognition, which is how does it make you feel when you put that suit on? It doesn't have to be, I was at a meeting earlier this week and I had on teal pants and a blazer that had printed flowers all over it, and it was so fun. And I put it on and I thought, gosh, I feel great in this. It was in a somewhat more professional environment. But I also felt like I was being myself as well, and it was really polished. And, that's my comfort level in which I also can engage my confidence. That's not everyone's comfort level. Right. So it's important to recognize, fashion doesn't always mean we're wearing, the most fun, whatever sort of thing. It can also be utilitarian, but it just fits and it works for you really well. That's what's so critical. And I think those are the important elements that really can feed in well to confidence.
Yeah. And it feeds into personal branding. We all have a personal brand. While oftentimes,
whether we like it or not,
I was going to say, oftentimes we think it's only those whose names are in flashing lights or whose faces plastered across a billboard or a screen. No, everyone has a personal brand. And trust me, ask someone to go to the store with you, or just to say, go online, and I bet that they could pick something out that said, this reminds me of you, or this is so you. You have it already.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of how do you direct the traffic of it in regards to how others perceive that. And how, again, yes, back to presence. So you have some kind of presence. It's just, what is it communicating, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. Yeah, I mean, I think, on the other side of that too, you can look to perhaps having a lack of presence or a lack of confidence in moments where you're wearing something that doesn't feel like you either. So that's definitely a critical point in this conversation as well. Which happens a lot for people. I mean, say just for instance, someone, they wake up in the morning, they have a big meeting in the afternoon, they're in a hurry. Maybe they've got kids at home, they're all trying to get out the door. They put on a pair of pants because they love those pants, but the pants maybe are a little too snug at the moment, which happens. It's happened to me. And, you walk in, you go sit down for lunch, and then you're like, well, these pants are a little bit tighter than they were before on me now.
But it's affecting your whole day. Like, because
and then you walk into the meeting.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you're thinking about it. And so you walk into the meeting. This is a big meeting and presentation. And half of your brain focus is on, oh my goodness, my clothes are so tight. I'm so uncomfortable. Can they tell? And so that's where you begin to lack being present within this moment that is so important, which is, again, another reason why I am such an advocate for, dress for the way that you need to dress, that fits your body, right, that fits your lifestyle, and it fits your personal brand and your personality and who you are. We do also have to meet certain requirements as well in certain workplaces, which is understandable. But, the conversations that I'm having with decision makers and at a lot of companies is that, they're beginning to be more curious and open to this idea of, how can we meet people a little bit more when it comes to dress codes. You know, a lot of dress codes are going away. They're just creating space to encourage people, though, to live within the realm, you know, of understanding, you know, their company culture is a big part of it,
Right.
and the clients and the industry in which they engage and serve.
Wonderful. Now, closet organization, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Does it matter or
best.
does it not?
I mean, any kind of organization matters. It just depends on how you do it. There's no, you know, framework for it. I do a lot of closet editing, and I often say we need to reduce the noise. So that's my encouragement in terms of organization: is reduce the noise, reduce the things that no longer serve you, because we can begin to have a mental or brain paralysis when we approach our closets, and there's too much stuff. That actually is one of the big reasoning behind why it takes us so long in the morning sometimes to get dressed.
That's me. And I have this hack that I do in my closet. So every 6 months, I will, and 6 months to a year, because I know I did it just a year since, because of not wearing as many clothes. And it's crazy because you do go to like that 10% that you wear all the time. But here's how I even found out what was working for me, what was serving me, what was not. Because after going through some, maturity and some life changes, position changes in the workforce, my style changed, and I leaned into it more. But I realized I had a lot of stuff from the old me, and what was not flattering to the new me. So my hangers, so you know how you hang your clothes up. So once you wear them, get them, you clean them, and it's time to put clothes back up, I will hang them the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of, and it's
Right.
actually scheduled on my calendar, like no end date. So there's a date, and this is the month, January is the month where I go through, and whatever is going the opposite way. So whatever's not turned,
right,
goes in the basket. That goes to, there's a women's shelter, women's workforce nonprofit. They come to the house and pick the stuff up. And then sometimes I will take some of the stuff because we hold on to it because it's like, this is good stuff though. I have individuals who I will give it to because it is. I mean, you've worked for this stuff and you don't want to just like give it away. But to be a blessing to someone else is even better. Like, how can you take what it is? So my thing is, it's just sitting in the closet. Why not allow someone else? But it's so funny because I will oftentimes say, but this is so cute, but you've not worn it in a year. Because remember, it's like 6 months to a year when I'm changing these hangers. Sometimes, and I'm saying 6 months to a year, because sometimes in the summer, when I have that time to kind of see what's going on, I can already see the pattern of what I am wearing. But then it forces me to wear what I've not turned. And with me not turning it, it makes me wear it. And then it's like, this didn't do it. So get it cleaned and put it in the basket.
Perfect. I love it. I think that that's a really good approach. I've encouraged that with other people. Yeah. And, I'm constantly editing my closet. I actually just recently did it last week, and I texted my 2 teenage nieces and was like, look out for a box. It's coming.
I know, they're like, yes, we love your boxes. Now tell us, I know you've hosted a number of events, beautiful events, I must say, in partnership with Neiman Marcus in 2020, the year prior. What can we expect for this current year?
Lots more events, lots more partnerships. Still with Neiman Marcus. I'm doing some more brand focused partnerships as well. I will tee this up. This is, I guess, the first official announcement of this. Yeah. At some point this year, I'm currently piloting a styling membership program that's all virtual. Oh. And so it will allow me to work with individuals across the country who can use me as a tap in, tap out resource, who maybe don't want to hire me as a full-time, partially full-time, like a full stylist, like I do in work in the nature in which I work with clients currently. It's just a way for me to expand and work with more people and help people feel better about themselves. Like that is the root of this work and why I love it so much. I mean, I started this business saying, I just want to help one person feel really good about themselves at least one point throughout the day. And that is still the case. So this is a way in which I'm getting ready to roll that out more. And then I have also, I guess this is less on the public radar, but I'm excited to share that I am doing more coaching and consulting with organizations and nonprofits, again, within the realm of executive presence and confidence and style, and authenticity. And so it's just such a privilege to be able to have every day be a different day and work with so many extraordinary people. And it feels good, it feels good and it's fun. So I feel very fortunate to get to have a job like this.
Wonderful. And then the website is?
Laura K. Sawyier, and I will spell that LauraKSawyier.com. And then my newsletter is on Substack and it's called Style Substance. Yes. And an email goes out every week. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And an email goes out every week now. It's alternating. So one week is very visual styling, themed recommendations, fun ideas. And then the alternative week is very much substance focused. That also falls into a lot of what this conversation was about.
Wonderful. This has been an absolute joy. We have a blast whenever we get together. I am so looking forward to all that's to come. And trust me, you will see me in the audience in some of these events. But we are here to help in any way that we can. Want to thank each and every one of you for joining us for this conversation. I know that you are now intrigued, and I'm sure your curiosity piqued to go and check that closet and get that closet together, but also kind of determine who it is that you're wanting to be and how you will be presenting yourself moving forward. Want to thank our sponsors, ITV Network, ALA Publications, Public Relations, All In Music and Media, Covenant Exchange, KSTL Jubilee 690 AM, Mosaic Ceiling, and Sparkman Publications for your continued support. Until next time, go be great. Don't forget you already have everything you need to live out success as you define it. Just go ahead, take time, give time.